museum with their 7-year-old kid. They want to be consumed by victimhood in every single display.
It's not victimhood. It's not victimhood, though, bro. That's not victimhood.
No, but things are always placed in the
threw Christopher Columbus's statue in the water in New Jersey.
I mean, was it the president?
Okay, but who got rid of Teddy Roosevelt at the Museum of...
We black people, it's true for poor people, working people, whoever, have never been solely victims. When you're victimized, that doesn't mean you're solely a victim.
Fixated on slavery.
Look, I have no idea. If anything, I think the Republican Party should go...
Part of the challenge of our country has always been the vicious legacy of white supremacy.
But as far as we know, he's not removing anything about black culture from the Black History Museum. He's not removing anything about black music from the Black History Museum.
No, but...
Hello, everybody. Guys, we got Bald and Balder today. Remember, they said this had nothing to do with racism, and they just wanted to highlight the great things about America and what it stood for. Check this out, and we'll talk about it.
The Washington Post reports the administration has ordered multiple national parks to remove information about slavery, which is part of Trump's order to eliminate, quote, corrosive ideology. But this latest purge includes the removal of history at Harper's Ferry Park in West Virginia, where the abolitionist John Brown led a raid to attempt to arm slaves for a revolt. And also this iconic photograph known as the Scourged Back. It depicts a slave, likely named Peter Gordon, in 1863 and the wounds inflicted by his abusers. Now, at the time, the picture spread quickly in the North and showed people the true cruelty of slavery, something many wouldn't have seen otherwise. Franklin Leonard joins us at the table. Now, many people have claimed that this isn't happening, that the whole purpose of this review is not, in large part, about scrubbing slavery and policing how slavery is mentioned by the parks and by the Smithsonian and others. But this report suggests that that might be the case. I will say a spokesperson for the Department of the Interior says that the Washington Post report is based on anonymous sources. They're cautioning that it's unverified.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a piece with the broader project that the Trump administration has had for months. I mean, he tweeted in August about museums and wanting to remove images that weren't bright and spoke to hope and the future of the country. And, you know, it's odd. I'm sitting here, I think, as part of the story of slavery in America. You know, my family, I am 4 generations removed from enslaved people in West Central Georgia, not far from where I grew up. And it's odd. I find it all very strange because for me, what more great American story is there than the survival and triumph over enslavement, Jim Crow, and the repercussions therefrom? You know, if the American identity is defined by hard work, grit, endurance, community, and using those things as a way to navigate all the obstacles that the world may throw at us, I don't know that there's a better definition of the American identity than the rise from chattel slavery, unless you don't like who the heroes and villains of that story are. And I would posit that the reason we're seeing this rewriting of history and the removal of these images is that the Trump administration is not comfortable with who the villains and the heroes are in the story of slavery, and they're trying to remove them. And I think it's very interesting that this is happening simultaneous to the re-addition of Confederate generals being named to U.S. military bases, because when those two things are simultaneously happening, it seems pretty obvious what the narrative thrust of the story is at least being attempted here.
I also think that
I couldn't have said that better myself. I mean, can Republicans and conservatives really make it any more clear what they think about black people, or brown people for that matter? Are Republicans that threatened by black people? Have you not harmed them enough already? The black population is about 12%. I think the white population in this country is 60%. White people have 5 times the amount of wealth. Like, this is insane. What is this psychotic obsession? Is it guilt? You don't want anyone to see any proof as to why black people are where they are socio-economically? Because then maybe that would mean that you're compelled to do something about it, doesn't it? So you just act like it doesn't exist or try to make it as such? Like, and obviously I know this is red meat, and I call it, you know, conservatives' favorite treat. That's kind of Just racist garbage, constant racist peddling that they do over there. But really, is this what drives some people? What gets you going? Some racism? It seems to me like such a sad existence. Guys, for sure, if aliens ever came down from another planet, Republicans would be racist towards them immediately. 100% would attack, I don't know, their hair type or something.
It leads to some questions about just what is the federal government, what is the president, not even the federal government, what is the president doing, tinkering in the National Park Service's
Who
exhibits?
took Teddy Roosevelt off of the museum?
well-
I'm just curious. Who threw Christopher Columbus's statue in the water in New Jersey?
I mean,
wasn't the
was it the
president.
president?
Well, okay, but who got rid of
Political
who got rid of Teddy Roosevelt in the Museum of Natural History?
No,
I mean,
I'm
he was the
asking.
president of the United States, and he can't be there. We don't like that statue. So it swings. My point.
So
I agree
who
with
wa-
every,
who
first of all,
was it?
I agree with every word that came out of your
Arthur,
mouth.
I'm not familiar with this story. It wasn't,
Yeah, actually, I don't
in
know the
fact,
answer
the
to that.
president of the United States.
Well,
who
I know.
did
Put it this
that?
way: I know Joe Biden didn't say, "Hold on." That's a president of the United States. We're not removing
Well,
his statue.
I mean, I think it's a
off the-
legit question because, I think that's part of the conversation here. The horrors of slavery. I think it's a question: should the president actually be doing that?
Well, did you say though in the beginning of the story we're not 100% sure if this is actually happening, or did
No,
I
I'm saying
mishear
that
you?
they're saying
They're reporting,
that.
is right. So we
I'm
don't even
saying-
know if this
I'm
is a
saying
fact.
that they're saying that it's unverified, but we do know two things. One, we know that Donald Trump has said that he thinks slavery is overemphasized in the Smithsonian. He said as much explicitly in a tweet. The other thing is that he issued an executive order that is to that point. And here's a statement from the Park Service that says, interpretive materials that disproportionately emphasize negative aspects of U.S. history or historical figures without acknowledging broader context or national progress can unintentionally distort understanding rather than enrich it. So they are looking to change some of these historical, posters and placards. And I think the question remains, is this something that the president should be doing? And why is he so fixated on slavery?
Look, I have no idea. If anything, I think the Republican Party should go on their front foot on slavery. I mean, you have a party that was founded by the abolitionists of this country.
You would
You had
think.
the Democratic Convention of 1860, which was split on basically which faction of the Democratic Party wanted more slavery. So if I was leading the Republican Party, I'd say let's go on our front foot on slavery. And I would find it hard to believe that you could eliminate slavery from a museum about John Brown. That said, not every time people want to go into the Smithsonian Museum with their 7-year-old kid, they want to be consumed by victimhood in every single display.
It's not victimhood. It's not victimhood, though, brother.
Slavery
That's not
is
victimhood.
Things are always placed in the
that's not
things are often placed in a social context where it's oppressed versus oppressors, and sort of that narrative and that scope and shape. I think sometimes it is okay to have a little bit more of a lighthearted, positive view of the country, especially when the federal government is paying
What
for
if
this.
it's
museum.
not
but Brother
historically
Franklin's point.
accurate? What
But
if
Brother-
it's not
Well,
historically accurate?
Brother
you're not.
Franklin's point is a stronger
You're
point.
selecting things that go into a museum. That doesn't make the fact that you've unselected it to go in a museum as inaccurate. You're just saying.
kinda
But
does.
where,
No, it
where,
doesn't. No, it
where I
doesn't.
saw that
That's not
picture
what it
was in the
does.
Museum
I
of
want-
African American History.
I want to get Cornell
Where
in
I-
because
you
he
know,
hasn't had a
John Brown,
chance
that
to
was
say
No,
it.
but
Go
I
ahead.
just want to say, Brother Joe, and see,
Really quick, Cornell, and I'll use your words. You heard Brother Humpty Dumpty there. That's another one. That's a classic. Black people are playing the victim. Really just incredible, especially in the context of effing slavery. Holy crap, what is wrong with some of these people's brain? And this is the problem, is that politically, the Republicans would never be front-footed with racism or slavery, because they figured out a long time ago that there's a huge swath of Americans that are simply bigots, racist, real hate in their heart for different types of people. That's just a hard truth. And instead of trying to help people see things differently in a more educated, empathetic way, the Republican Party, conservatives, they use this to demonize, for instance, black and brown people, and further energize and fuel the racism in this country. Like I mentioned all the time, it's their go-to move, foundational to the Republican Party. It's not a mystery as to why Republicans talk the way they do when you figure out that the majority of their voters, the majority of their voters feel about black and brown people. That's why they talk the way they talk. That's why they do these stupid things. Remove slave. Like, who's asking for this? And I've said this before, about 87% of the Republican voters are white. I think it's pretty easy to understand as to why that is. And again, I have nothing against white people, right? I have a bunch of white friends. These are different kinds of white people they're speaking to.
Brother Franklin's point was this, that we black people, it's true for poor people, working people, whoever, have never been solely victims. When you're victimized, that doesn't mean you're solely a victim. The great tradition of culture, music, politics, community, church, mosque, synagogue in black communities, it's true in other communities too, it means they're responding to victimization. But the Trump administration, part of their challenge is, and I don't want to criticize them solely, because there's ways of deodorizing and the histories in various other ways. But the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. He does not want to see black suffering centered in that way. Part of the challenge of our country has always been the vicious legacy of white supremacy.
But as far as we know, he's not removing anything about black culture from the Black History Museum. He's not removing anything about black music from the Black History Museum.
No,
But if he's not talking about he's scared of slavery.
But he's not talking about the sources of that culture. He's removing where that culture came from. And so if you don't have the history of where that culture came from, if you don't have the photo of the whipped back, you don't understand, you can't contextualize the joy and the triumph that is black culture in the decades and centuries that followed. And I think that, again, if you want to talk about heroism and the American identity, what better, look, I'm biased. I'm the descendant of enslaved peoples. But what better story of the American identity is there than we survived one of the greatest moral evils ever perpetrated on earth and have found joy and triumphed here in this country.
And love for this country.
Exactly. And you can't tell that story without telling the first part.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's just entertainment.
Not to mention
We
that
have to
there's
leave it
still
there.
so many people who don't know what happened, don't know these facts. I was perplexed. First time I went to the to the Museum of African American History, by the amount of people who told me they did not know who Emmett Till was. People in my life who had not heard about Emmett Till. So we need to have the historical truth.
All right, let's leave it there. Next for us, Don.
It's truly the most heroic, unrelenting story, the perseverance of black people. I'm honored to stand by the black community. To not want to learn from that story and take what you can, the story that's still going on today, and take what you can, is beyond my comprehension. Like, black people are literally just like hanging out and trying to mind their own business just like everyone else. And they just seem to always be dragged into stuff no one seems to have been asking for. Like, who's asking for this crap? Who's running out there making a big fit that we need to remove slavery information in national parks? And if you are asking yourself this, when you do go to a museum, this bothers you, you really need to look inside as to why that is. It's something wrong. Go take a walk in the park. And honestly, if you don't have a black or a brown friend, go and make one. I'm being honest about that. And see that you have been insanely brainwashed about different groups of people. There are bad and good people of all types. What's wrong with you? Wake up. Your racism is eating at your brain and your soul day in and day out. Does bigotry really make you happy? Do you really feel happy when you feel negative thoughts about all these different groups of people? Like, I just don't get it. Where's like the benefit? Whatever. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. It really helps the channel, really helps push the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.